speaking about hold my beer, speaking about comeback in our sport, to come back from a broken back and the darkest of spaces that guy was in, you know, he has just honestly, I don't even want to say on the field, but with all due respect, I think that was almost unexpected for Amaury to bounce back this quickly and in this sort of emphatic fashion. But could we expect anything less from the guy? You know? So it's almost 5 seconds. It can happen on this track in those conditions. If you get things firing and you can hold on and your bike is working, like I think their bike suits a track like this, let's be honest. One of the heavier bikes on the circuit. They have ways to make it compliant. They've got a higher sort of pivot and an idle wheel that they can change, like all those sort of things. But to see him, I think what happened in Leogang was a blessing for him. He overrode his race run and he knew it. So it's to me that he almost backed it down a notch. Go slow to go fast, hey, EC. So yeah, that's a little bit of it, but you guys maybe riff on that. EC, go for it and then win. Like that was just one for the ages.
Yeah, I mean, when you want to go, you want me to go first, Andrew? I'll go first. Dude, I mean, gosh, like the way he came out of the gate, right? Like he came out of the gate super, super good. And it was just amazing to watch how he hit his first couple of corners, right? Like that set the tone for his run. What I noticed in the first couple of corners is he had really good lines. He had a good gear selection when it accelerated after the first 2 corners before the little drop down. But his bike then there's 3 kind of big swooping corners, and he had really good lines on those, but his bike was really, really neutral. And so when I say neutral, like he would set it on edge and it would track really smooth, nice radius arcs where there wasn't under or oversteer. It was just tracking these perfect smooth arcs. And so the second corner, the second right-hander, he came off of that. He got a really good line. He got off of that berm early, got a good line into that step down thing into the left. And then when it drops down into that bowl and there's that high speed right, you can actually see he gets really wide on that and gets a really good exit on that. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Like this is, the flow is in. And it was like, okay, what's going to happen when he crests over into the first bits of that stuff? He had amazing line choice. He really, really picked that course apart to like in a way that nobody else did. His bike was tracking on a whole different level. Their setup, he was loading into stuff. He was jumping into stuff. Other riders weren't jumping into the things that he was jumping into. So that told me he had supreme confidence in what he was hitting and how he was hitting it. And he knew that his bike was going to stay underneath him and not skate. And so what you saw was a lot of riders were riding over the stuff because it was like, you know, when you're riding over roots, you have the ability to steer the bike. When you're jumping into things like that, there's always that little question mark of if I put it in the wrong spot, things aren't going to happen good. But I think he was loading and jumping over things. So it almost unlocked a whole different course for him. Similar to when you see like Jet Lawrence ride moto, how it's a whole different, he's hitting completely different bumps than everybody else. And I mean, it was building his exit speed. He had one sketchy spot that he kind of ping-ponged through a little bit. But it also seemed like he was riding on a drier part of the course, right? Like if you're on the course that everybody's been riding on the whole day, that's bringing the moisture up. And if you're bouncing over some of those spots, you're landing in drier spots. You're on the drier part of the course. And dude, 4.8 seconds, 8.2 seconds to 5th place. What the hell, dude? Like that doesn't happen in the modern age. Like the equipment has been so refined. The riders are the most amazing athletes. You know, it's just gotten more and more F1. Our sport has just gotten more and more refined. To see something like that reminded me of the way Nico would just kick our ass. Like he would just pick the course apart and he would be, you know, we would all be standing down at the bottom watching him race and all the riders would just be like, oh my gosh, like, how did he find that? How did he do that? Right. And I think the telling thing for me about his run with the field was when they panned over at the end of the race and you saw Finn's face, that split second of Finn's face of like, that was a like, what the hell do I have to do? Like, that is impossible. Like, in Finn's face showed that's impossible. And like you said, now when you give us the intel on it, like he was fastest in every sector, Finn probably thought like, dude, I'm winning this thing. And yeah, I mean, nobody was touching that run. That's a run for the ages, man. Like, it was really, really amazing. So, and you just add to that the comeback, the story of the adversity that he's faced multiple times, man. That guy's been busted up, like not a broken arm or a broken collarbone. It's like multiple injury, helicopter flight out. Like, those are the type of runs that change people's, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's had it multiple times, dude. And he's still able to do this. What the hell, dude? What do they got in the water in France, man? This is crazy shit, dude.
No, crazy shit. He loves it, man. He lives for winning. He loves it, win. So speaking of winning, take us through that win. Like, what, I mean, tough to add to that. EC's nailed it. It's just amazing. But you're on site, so you're feeling the energy at that finish line. You're speaking to these riders where Loic's like, sorry, what did he win by? 4. And you're like, no, it's basically 5 because it was 4.8. Yeah. And Troy, everyone's like, oh, it's so awesome to see Amri back. Yeah, it is for us at home. I don't know about for you guys.
Well, he already had another sort of challenge with his brother having a big crash the day before as well and getting taken off in a helicopter, I think, as well. So his brother broke his pelvis into pieces. So that probably wouldn't, for me, that wouldn't help the cause, but he said that motivated him. So I'm not really sure how you can get motivated from something like that, but this guy is built different. Like, he lives and breathes winning downhill races. Like, and the road to get back to this has been like anything but easy. He said he had doubts that he might not even get another podium again. So just to see what he's got back to is unreal. And then to put on a clinic like that where the whole hot seat has just look on their face, they can't believe what's happening. Like, Dak was like, oh, any other day but today could have Amri done his comeback. Like, and I was like, well, yeah, your run was amazing. But then whatever he did, I don't know. Like, it was something else. So it's just like, that is Amri to a T, you know? Like, the other run that kind of reminds me of that sort of style was the one he did in Leger when you watched the GoPro. Like, when he won a Leger and you watched the GoPro back, it was just ridiculous. And when you rode the track, you couldn't believe the speed he was riding every section. He hardly braked, like, at that Leger run. And then in this run, I watched some of his GoPro. I just saw it on Instagram. When he entered the top first bit of the woods, where a lot of the guys were going wide around, like Finn went wide around it. Amri went inside across all the routes, and he got all the little hops, but like hardly slowed down. He can't brake much at all. To do that committed is like something else, especially when you know that it could be slick, you know? Like, if you've been at the top, you've done your warm-up, it's cloudy outside, you know it's going to be slick on those routes. So to come in that committed is like, that's just Amri Perron to a T. Like, the whole thing.
Yeah, it was, man. I mean, he had that mist sort of cleared at the top when Amri came down, and he earned that, right? He was fastest in semi, but it was almost like the universe. The sun came out for him. The vision was there, but the track wasn't going to be any better than 10 minutes before that when there was a bit of that. But, man, you hit it on nail on the head, because EC said earlier, like, if Amri wasn't there, Dak's run, you'd be like, oh my goodness, he was so composed, it was amazing. You know, it barely looked like he's trying. What an awesome World Cup win, right? And then Amri comes down and you like almost can't speak about any of the other runs. And, you know, we have to look back at Aaron Gwyn, and this is the track that he did it. It was 7 or 8 seconds. I looked it up on Roots and Rain. But but it's years ago now. It's over 10 years ago. Let me look it up while we're speaking, because Aaron Gwynn in, what year is this? 2012. So it's 12 years ago. He beat Greg Minnaar by 8 seconds.
And I think this is the next biggest margin since then.
It is. No, at 100%.
This is insane, like that.
And as EC said, the level, there's way more depth. There's way more guys that can podium. There's way more guys that can win. There's way more guys that believe they can win. You got Dak. He can win. He really deserves a win by now. So you got all that depth. You got the bike technology. You got all that. But the reason so people might say, okay, cool. But how does that happen? Why does it happen? Well, when you've got a rider that is as good as he is with a bike setup, as committed, but you've got length of track, so you've got a 3-minute 40 track or whatever it is, so you can put a little bit more gap than you can at Leogang. You've got the weather. The weather plays a huge role. And then more riders are going to make a little bit of mistakes, and on that track, it just doesn't let up. There's no easy section where it doesn't matter if you're 30th in the world or first in the world, you're within half a second. We see that at a lot of World Cup tracks, not this track. So there's all those reasons that you can have a time gap like that. Doesn't make it any easier to do that. I'm as blown away as ever. And like you said, you got people at the bottom just scratching their heads. It was like the great Nicolas Villiers, like Sam Hill, or like Gwynne. You're like, how the... And I'm going to swear.
They couldn't believe
am I meant to compete with that? Now, luckily, each week is not Val Di Sole, and I promise you we get to Leger, and if the conditions are somewhat normal, times will be tight again. But, man, what a cool story for us to talk about.